All right, guys, we're going to talk today about the second major candidate that I'm going to profile for the 2020 race. I don't think that I'm necessarily going to give all of the information that is out there. If you have some sort of theory or problem with a candidate, you can put it in the comments below and I'll research it further. I'll give an update. This is just uh, the issues that I can find that they have some sort of connection to. It could be that there are certain problems that you might have with them in terms of either their positions that I didn't cover or certain activities that they have beyond just their previous positions that I think, they could enrich this type of discussion. Okay. So if you think I left something out, I just want to put it out there that I'm open to featuring it in a continuation video, especially with some of the lesser known candidates. So for those of you that are just visiting this channel for the first time, please like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and also share the video wherever you can. And I'll give some of the links to the rest of my social media at the end. So you have Julian Castro, who is basically, I think he would be the second candidate that has officially declared, although there are a number that have formed exploratory committees. There's Elizabeth Warren. I think Kirsten Gillibrand did declare today. And I think that it's going to be interesting to kind of think about where he fits into this race, which I'll put that sort of at the end of the video because that's kind of conjecture. I think that it's more important at the beginning just to get kind of a feel for where this person is coming from and exactly what they could potentially bring to the table as a candidate for this office, president of the USA. So he was mayor of San Antonio from 2010 to 2014. Before that, he'd been a city councilman, I believe, until 2006 when he ran for mayor the first time and lost. Now, the thing is that according to the information that I have, the city of San Antonio, and I'll go over this later, the city of San Antonio's mayor isn't necessarily the most important position in the city. They work under a city manager system, so therefore what Castro's real position was as mayor of San Antonio was kind of just being the committee chairman of the city council. So take that for what it's worth. He signed on as one of the mayors for marriage equality in 2012. Gay marriage at the time was kind of a touchy issue for a lot of national politicians. So who were the people who were, the big proponents of gay marriage at the time for, people who were really advocating it? They were big city mayors, people like, for example, Gavin Newsom of San Francisco, people like, I believe Mayor Bloomberg was in favor of gay marriage. So that, I guess, would technically put him ahead of the curve in the Democratic Party as opposed to a number of national politicians. Well, last time I did give you the fact that Tulsi Gabbard, who is a very interesting progressive candidate, did have a number of statements that were derogatory towards that issue at the time, meaning that she was contending against this gay marriage campaign back at the time. I personally, I think that people who are trying to make this an issue in the campaign, first of all, they can't let go of the past. And second of all, they have to realize that the party, as of 2015, when the Supreme Court overturned the Defense of Marriage Act, many of the people in the party were still, especially at the national level, were still pretending that they were, trying to uphold the traditional marriage or something. I personally, I probably would have voted to support the Defense of Marriage Act because I think that, as a corollary to a lot of this, change, thanks to, the Obergefell decision. Well, these activists, they've run out of things to do. in terms of that issue. So they've expanded into other issues that have nothing to do with so-called equal rights. But I want to put it in there because it is one of the more specific issues that I saw was covered by him when he was mayor of San Antonio. What about him as HUD secretary? So there's a document I have a link to it in this presentation. I'll try to put the link in the description to the video, where he was appointed in 2014. He claimed that he used Ginnie Mae, the GNMA, to keep the Federal Housing Administration and Veterans Administration viable. So both of those organizations depend a lot on the mortgage industry's the housing mortgage industry's rates, so far as how they calculate their mortgages for low income customers as well as veterans. There was also his claim that he reduced borrowers' premium for payment of mortgage insurance. Okay, he also claims to have created the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. This program transfers public housing to private hands. So we're going to go and examine some of those issues, both when he was mayor of San Antonio and when he was HUD secretary. All right, so we were talking a little bit before about how, when you're the mayor of a big city, you have all these liberties that you could take in regards to things that national politicians can't get away with. How do you get popular when you're the mayor? Well, you typically will promote this really rosy program that claims that you're going to make the city a very modern urban area, a very trendy place. And in the case of San Antonio, when Julian Castro was the mayor, they had this thing called SA 2020. And maybe I'm an idiot, but I don't really understand the specific goals and programs of SA 2020, largely because apparently it's a nonprofit now. It used to be a city-run initiative, and it looks like it's just this organization that a number of small and large corporations are contributing to. So I think it's kind of that we have the same thing here. What they'll typically do is they'll try to promote businesses to move into the downtown area, create a lot of foot traffic, and obviously get some entertainment there. What are some other issues that happen? So this was when he was a city councilman, and I don't know why Politico thinks that this is like cool stuff. They'll feature this crap just in order to get more clicks. I think it's a funny story. I don't exactly object to what's going on here, but they were saying the time Julian Castro did business with Trump and quickly regretted it. On Saturday, Julian Castro announced he wants Donald Trump's job. Back in 2002, he wanted Trump's business. So what they're trying to do, whoever this is maybe portray him as being disingenuous. As a San Antonio City Council member, in his late 20s, Castro voted to give $600,000 in taxpayer subsidies to land Trump's Miss USA beauty pageant, a move that delighted the business mogul at the time and would undoubtedly do so again if Castro gains traction in the Democratic presidential primary. I had many people who wanted the pageant, and San Antonio did a great job taking it away from the other cities. Trump told the San Antonio Express News at the time, adding later, I usually end up investing wherever I go. You got to do something with the money, right? So what these things are, when you have like an event like Miss Universe, what this is bidding for advertisement. Miss Universe long term doesn't really or Miss USA in this case, it doesn't necessarily add long term revenue to a city. It just gives it kind of a one night where it can showcase its sighting to the world. In fact, if you think about it, who cares where Miss Universe is if it's indoors? You don't get to see the sights and sounds of the city, except maybe in some of these like in between segments or something. Then Mayor Ed Garza, who met with Trump and worked hard to land the event, argued it was a sound investment for the media exposure. Exactly. But Castro would soon wonder if he made a mistake in voting to fork over serious taxpayer cash for the event, which was approved in a unanimous vote. The deal for the Miss USA pageant was based on the assertions of the staff that we would get about $2 million in direct advertising. Castro told the Express News in March 2003, weeks before the pageant began, but there was no analysis in respect to how many room nights we would get out of it, how many visitors would come into the city, how much they would spend. So this sounds kind of like somebody with buyer's remorse who voted one way when he could have objected, he could have been the lone person to vote against it. Castro, who announced his campaign for president in San Antonio on Saturday, suggested in a statement that Trump pulled one over his hometown. Donald Trump routinely overpromises and underdelivers, and taxpayers are always left with the bill, Castro's spokeswoman Jennifer Fiore said. The saga from the archives of San Diego government is unlikely to determine the next resident of the Oval Office, but the Republican National Committee, which dug up the vote in 2016 as part of opposition research on Castro when the former Housing and Urban Development Secretary was in the running to be Hillary Clinton's running mate, saw it at least as a potential opportunity to embarrass the Democratic ticket. Trump repeatedly mocked his 2016 rivals over their past financial dealings with him, accusing them of begging for his money when it served their interests. With Clinton, he argued that his past campaign contributions essentially forced her to come to his wedding. She didn't have a choice because I gave. So, it's funny. It's funny. The agreement to win the city and Miss Universe organization is full of small details that Trump would surely enjoy lording over his would-be challenger. Miss Universe organization is the parent company of the Miss USA pageant. In addition to hundreds of free or discounted hotel rooms, dozens of cars, 2 first-class climate-controlled buses, and 24-hour security, the city helped provide the Trump organization with muffins and bagels with assorted condiments, granola bars, candy, fresh fruit, chips, pretzels, cookies, crackers, popcorn, nut mix, and raisins, according to a copy of the agreement obtained by an open records request. Yeah, this is hilarious. And but it also doesn't say much about Castro's policies. I think there are a number of cities that do stupid shit like this all the time. And I think it's more commentary on how city government works in the U.S. than it is on necessarily whether Castro or Trump is the better candidate. I think it's just it would be a funny sideshow to watch these two go at it over it. So then you have this article, from City Lab, which deals a little bit with urban affairs. It says, unlike the strong mayor governments of Chicago and New York, San Antonio's government is led by a city manager. Julian Castro, the mayor of San Antonio, is said to be joining President Obama's cabinet as Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. That may or may not be a boon for national housing policy or smart for Castro's broader political aspirations. Castro has been a central figure in San Antonio politics for nearly as long as the San Antonio Spurs have been really good at basketball. He was elected to the city council in 2001 at age 26, making him the youngest council member in the city's history. After 2 consecutive 2-year terms, he narrowly lost a bid for mayor in 2005. He won the mayor's seat in 2009. Then he won re-election twice by wide margins, gaining 82.9% of the vote in 2011 and 67% of the vote in 2013. So these are, I guess, 2-year elections, 2-year terms of office. But using Castro's accomplishments as mayor as a lens to measure his potential as a cabinet member is tricky. San Antonio city government is a council-manager system. Unlike the strong mayor governments of Chicago or New York, San Antonio's government is led by a city manager, which is appointed by the city council. The city charter invests in the city manager the authority to execute the laws and administer the government of the city. Serving in the comparatively ceremonial role of mayor, Castro largely inherited the major urban accomplishment of his administration, the Museum Reach expansion of the San Antonio Riverwalk, which was completed the same month Castro was elected. This is an achievement in which San Antonio's mayor did play a major role. Mayor Phil Hardberger, who beat Castro for office in 2005 and was reelected for a second term in 2007, has received credit for pushing the city council to finally adopt the long-planned expansion. Hardberger left office with an 86% approval rating. It says here, by and large, Castro's accomplishments have to be measured by his work elsewhere. Perhaps most notably, he was a part of the council that successfully lured Toyota and several suppliers to build a pickup truck factory 10 miles south of downtown in 2003. Up until the recession, San Antonio enjoyed a jobs boom. Texas Monthly reported in 2007 that 97 companies opened operations in San Antonio between 2003 and 2007, creating more than 22,000 jobs. He also worked to curb sprawl, defeating a PGA-approved golf course and a vast suburban development outside the city. So that's something I find confusing. Why would you object if you're mayor of a city that is trying to attract more people, more tourism, whatever? I'm not a golf fan by any means. I really don't care for golf, but the PGA, it would draw tourism, it would draw people. It's entertainment, and it would be probably to a certain extent more permanent of a change than would be of course the Miss Universe pageant, which is there for a night and then leaves. Another thing is that in 2017, which is, it's past the time when he was mayor, probably 3 years later, San Antonio ranks first nationally for serious crimes, according to FBI data. This is from My San Antonio, the local paper there. So I would say this. You have a city which he took over. He was the mayor. The mayor is not necessarily the most effective person, but if he wants to run on his record, the city does have a number of real serious issues. I do know a lot of people who say they go to San Antonio for vacation or just to get away, and they think it's a pretty awesome town. So I'm not quite sure who to believe or not. In 2016, the city of San Antonio ranked first nationally out of 15 of the country's largest cities for the per capita number of Part 1 offenses, the 8 crimes the FBI considers the most serious. These crimes are murder and non-negligent homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, motor vehicle theft, larceny, and arson. My favorite, according to the FBI. But there's no need to panic. Criminal justice experts and law enforcement officials say it's normal for crime to fluctuate from year to year, sometimes without an apparent cause. It also depends on how you analyze the data, they say. For example, if you change the criteria looking at the nation's largest 50 cities, San Antonio ranks high, but not first for the number of Part 1 offenses. Homicides and violent crime also rose in San Diego last year. In 2016, there were 149 homicides in San Antonio, a 21-year high. I hope I don't keep saying San Diego. The per capita homicide rate, 10.8 per 100,000 people, also jumped to the highest it has been in 20 years. That places San Antonio 6 out of 15 of the nation's largest cities. So this happened, again, this latest part of the rise has happened since he left office. But I think people should be aware that for a person who, he traffics on his name as, a former big city mayor. San Antonio does have a serious violent crime problem. I mean, what are you going to say? And it did under him as well. And it's not clear exactly whether he could have done anything because, as explained in the other articles, the mayor position is kind of ceremonial. So the rental assistance demonstration program, which you mentioned before, tries to save public housing units by transferring them to the public sector. It's earned bipartisan support, but some housing advocates worry about accountability. So when Senator Elizabeth Warren asked Ben Carson what he would do as HUD Secretary to address the conditions of U.S. public housing, Carson enthusiastically signaled out one program for praise, the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, a 5-year-old federal initiative that has gone largely under the radar. He said he's very encouraged by RAD's early results and looks forward to working with Congress to expand this worthy program. RAD works by transferring public housing units to the private sector so that developers and housing authorities can tap into a broader range of subsidies and financing tools to rehab and manage the units. So I talked about something like this a few years ago. Actually, no, it was just last year when talking about the NYCHA issue over in New York. My proposal would be that instead of having the state manage these massive housing developments, they would basically be sold to the residents, and the residents would pay they would start paying into it and get basically a share of a large company that would be managing the upkeep of the place, and if they violated it, they'd probably get kicked to the curb, which is part of being in an organization. It's part of being a part of a team. You understand? So I will say that this program is a bit it's pretty different from what I'm talking about. This actually just ends up privatizing these to large landowners or whatever. Now, I have kind of skepticism to whether landowners would be in it to help these poor residents of these housing places, but it's damn sure that HUD and all of these local housing authorities have failed so far. And all this other stuff that Julian Castro was supposed to have done, I don't think is necessarily cleared up the housing market. We still have issues where economists are already talking about the next housing bubble. So, yeah, I think you can read through this. I don't think if you're a progressive, you're going to be very thrilled at all with what's going on with Julian Castro. For example, it says here, Terry Bagby, a 58-year-old veteran who also lives in Kelly's building, agrees it's been extremely stressful. A lot of our questions go unanswered by all these different agencies that come and have meetings with us. He says, I'm surprised I haven't had another heart attack or stroke dealing with all this nonsense. So I believe he's addressing the fact that, they're dealing with this guy. They're dealing with these new organizations that are taking over these developments. For example, they live in San Francisco. Their building is being taken over by the Tenderloin Neighborhood Development Corporation. And he says that the lease he's been being asked to sign is illegal, dishonest, and unconscionable. So yeah, I think that there's certainly a lot to research for those people that might be considering voting for Julian Castro.
You see, I learned from my mother so many years ago in this community that when we want change, we don't wait for change, we work for it. When my grandmother got here almost 100 years ago, I'm sure that she never could have imagined that just 2 generations later, one of her grandsons would be serving as a member of the United States Congress, and the other would be standing with you here today to say these words: I am a candidate for President of the United States of America. Thank you.
Okay, so some of my impressions about that. The fact is that I don't think that he would be necessarily a great candidate. His brother is a congressman, also from the San Antonio, Bexar County area in Texas. But I'll tell you what's the problem. I think he's too much of an insider. The DNC is right now dominated by another Obama former cabinet member, Tom Perez, who was Obama's labor secretary for, I think it was for 1 term, but it doesn't even matter. People are going to kind of question exactly what is the intention of this group of Obama alumni trying to retake control of the party. And I'll explain why. You see, they're the people that got the Democratic Party into deep shit in 2016. The Obama campaign, according to down in Brazil, after 2012, they continued to pressure the DNC to pay a number of their cronies, advisors and campaign people, things like that, all sorts of consultants. They continued to bill them in order to kind of grease the wheels. And by 2016, the DNC was in some sort of crazy fundraising hole. You can look that up. It's from. In fact, I'll try to put a link to that if I can remember. But all you have to do is look up Donna Brazil's 2017 statement about how she found the DNC after Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigned. So it's people like Castro, it's people like Perez that basically bankrupted the party throughout the Obama second term. It's the Obama cabal of people that got the Democrats into the mess that they were in, specifically with regards to that. I'm not even talking about policy. With respect to the candidate field. So he is going to be going up against some people that might have advantages against him in some areas, but obviously in other ones not. So the Democrats, they're really key on this diversity thing, and he happens to be Mexican American, which would be, it would score a lot of points for them in many communities. And if you look at some of the earlier primary states, I guess Iowa, I'm not sure if they have a large Mexican population or Hispanic population at large. I wouldn't assume it would win him Iowa. Nevada, though, would be kind of a state to look at. I think Nevada has either the third or fourth primary or caucus in the elections, the primary election season. Then you have to, I think, wait till some of these other states like Arizona and Texas come into play. But if he's able to capitalize on that, I don't necessarily think that Latino voters will vote for him exclusively because of his last name and his ethnic background. We'll have to see. I think it's kind of stupid when people depend on that. I think if they look into his record, they might find something they don't like. And that's one of the issues that I see with a number of these candidates. They started looking into Tulsi Gabbard's record, some of these Democrats, and they don't like some of the statements she made about gays. Fine, you don't have to vote for her. I personally think it's a petty reason to object to her. I think she, in a lot of other ways, she brings some very very principled stands to the race. With this guy, I think it's a lot of window dressing in terms of the policies that he claims to have promoted as HUD secretary and as mayor of San Antonio. The housing crisis, all of the homelessness in the country. I think one of the reports said that there's still about 500,000 people who are homeless in the country. And it kind of was tapering off once Castro went into office, but it still the tapering off slowed down under him and eventually recovered. So homelessness actually, I believe it went up during 2017. Is that the Trump administration's fault? Is that the Obama administration's fault? I guess I'll let you guys argue over that. With all of the other candidates that are in the field, you have him going up against somebody like Kamala Harris, who I believe is supposed to announce later this week, and against Tulsi Gabbard. You have him up against possibly Joe Biden, Kirsten Gillibrand. How does he stack up against them? I don't think it's that good. I think if you're one of these people that is looking for really unique and imaginative policies, you'd probably go with Tulsi Gabbard. If you're looking for somebody who is very presidential and can present themselves, I think he'd probably go with Gillibrand. Sorry, this Hangouts always pops up. And then, of course, there's these people. I don't know how he keeps making it so high in the polls, but if you want to think of him as like the folksy candidate that can relate to people, you have Joe Biden. I don't see anything yet with Julian Castro in terms of personality. In fact, he has kind of a very creepy, like snake face or something. If you guys don't see it, then maybe I'm just mental or something. But that's about it. So, put whatever you want in the comments where, if you object to Castro, if you actually find some reason that he could be a good candidate, I'm all ears. This I think is something we're going to be discovering over the next year and a half at least. And we'll see how these people stack up. Eventually I'm going to have to start making fun of some of these candidates because of the crazy and ridiculous shit that they do in the campaign. So that's about it. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Also, please subscribe to me on CocoScope and on BitChute. Those links should be below.